When you have a successful movie like The Silence of the Lambs, a film that introduced audiences to one of the most iconic villains of all time, you of course have many people wanting a sequel. The anticipation was greatened when Thomas Harris published his next book in 1999. So, is this an equally tense follow-up to the suspenseful hit? Well, not really. This is Hannibal. Yeah, I wish. Watching this movie instead of the criminally underappreciated TV show is like passing up the darkly engrossing Daredevil Netflix series in favor of the silly, overproduced film adaptation. Alright, let's get on with the story. The film begins 10 years after The Silence of the Lambs. Dr. Hannibal Lecter, still on the run, has carved out a new identity for himself in Florence. One day, Chief Inspector Rinaldo Pazzi deduces Lecter's identity and forms a plan to turn him over to Mason Verger, who's placed a bounty on his head after being disfigured by the insane doctor. Meanwhile, Clarice Starling, struggling to make her way in the FBI, takes it upon herself to catch Lecter before Verger can kill him. First and foremost, the story is a heavily fragmented mess. The scenes in Florence and the United States feel like two different movies, and in trying to broaden the scope, the tale loses the sense of focus that its predecessor had. Clarice Starling is presumably the main character, but she has almost nothing to do with the main plot until the third act. Sure, we see her struggling with the FBI while trying to find a lead on Lecter, but this is intercut with a slew of other characters, each one having his own agenda. It doesn't help that the new players aren't very likable or interesting, mostly due to the script. There are several points where a character just does or says something without much in the way of, motivation or context. However, I can't really fault the actors for that, as most of them do their jobs well. Julianne Moore gives a commendable performance as Agent Starling. Yeah, she doesn't have the edge that Jodie Foster brought to the role, but she still brings plenty of sharpness, initiative, and emotional strength that make her fairly compelling. Anthony Hopkins, on the other hand, is just hammy, coming dangerously close to self-parody. He still has the evil smile and slithering demeanor, but it just comes across as over-the-top this time around, especially with the cartoonish gore scenes. A large part of that, again, has to do with the writing. The script makes Lecter out to be less intelligent here, and the dynamic between him and Starling is all kinds of wrong. They don't actually speak to each other until over an hour in, and even when they do come in contact, the scenario is not all that engrossing, it's just kind of gross. Instead of the unsettling ambiguity in The Silence of the Lambs, their relationship here is mostly sexual. Lecter has essentially been made into a cannibalistic version of Master Roshi. Sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent. As I said, the acting definitely leaves a positive impression. Gary Oldman is amusingly sardonic as Mason Verger, Frankie Faison is still appealingly good-natured as Barney, and Giancarlo Giannini brings a weathered experience and weight to Chief Inspector Pazzi. Then we have Starling's co-worker Krendler, played by Ray Liotta. I couldn't stand him in this movie. It's not really his fault though, he plays the part as it's written. The problem is that this shallow, chauvinistic moron feels completely out of place here. On the upside, what doesn't feel out of place is the music. Hans Zimmer's score is very easy on the ears. The elegantly operatic pieces are perfectly suited to the Florentine setting. In conjunction, there is noticeably more directorial finesse this time around. Ridley Scott infuses a theatrical grace into his style, conjuring up a plethora of gorgeous shots that really capture the haunting majesty of the sets and locations. Unfortunately, his efforts can't save Hannibal. Although it's held up by admirable performances, an accomplished musical score, and solid direction, it ultimately crumbles under its sloppy characterization, unfocused story, and misguided idea that sickening gore equates to real horror. Thanks for watching, feel free to like, subscribe, and/or comment. Until next time.